happy while she was growing up. Diane had the most gorgeous red hair and an absolutely beautiful smile. But unfortunately, behind that beautiful smile, Diane struggled with some mental health issues. And in the late 1980s, she was diagnosed as being manic depressive. Now, manic depressive, you can have like moments of what is described as mania. And mania is a lot like it sounds. It often involves sleeplessness, sometimes for days on end, along with hallucinations, psychosis, just grandiose delusions, and even paranoid rage. And the lows of this also resemble severe depression. So these people can go from feeling like they are invincible to feeling anxious, empty, and suicidal. And it is not uncommon for people with manic depressive disorder to be hospitalized at least once or twice in their lifetime. This is not something that can be cured. It can only be managed by medication. And Diane was on medication for this disorder. However, like most people on these types of medicines, she was known to take it sporadically. Okay, I shouldn't say most people, sorry, don't get mad at me. Like, some people on this type of medicine, they only take it sporadically because, as Diane felt, it wasn't really effective for her, and it can make your symptoms feel worse. And having been put on an anxiety medication myself, and knowing how it made me feel, I can sympathize with not wanting to take this kind of stuff because it just makes you feel wrong. So, now because of this, Diane really started to struggle as she got older. But she managed to fall in love. She got married to a man named Frederick, and the two of them had 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. Diane is described as a doting mother, and she was able to keep her disorder under control for the most part. She was a stay-at-home mom, and she enjoyed taking care of her children. But of course, in the background, where people didn't see, she was still struggling to keep everything together. On the best of days, this disorder is quite difficult. And as I mentioned, Diane did skip some doses. It is reported that she began to rely more on drugs and alcohol to soothe herself. Now, these are not great soothing mechanisms, as we know. And however, when you add in the manic depressive disorder, they can absolutely just wreak havoc on someone's life. And that is exactly what happened to Diane. She was arrested several times for petty crimes, and she was taken into custody under the state's Baker's Act at least 32 times, which means she was involuntarily instituted for inpatient care at a mental health care center. Like I said earlier, most people with manic depressive disorder will be hospitalized at least once in their life. Diane's disorder was so severe that she was hospitalized over 32 times in approximately 7 years. Just to give you some scope on how badly this was affecting her. In 1998, Diane was accused of child abuse, like Gypsy Rose, where, you know, her mother was just crazy about her health. She had a feeding tube, thought that she couldn't walk, you know, her teeth fell out, all of these things. If you don't know that case, maybe I'll cover it sometime. Now, we know that this type of behavior is actually a mental illness called Munchausen's by proxy. And in a situation with Diane, it is likely linked to her manic depressive disorder. Diane would ultimately be acquitted of these charges. However, the state did continue to pursue a case against her. And so her children were removed from her custody. And I cannot imagine how devastating this must have been. And it caused Diane to relapse. She was institutionalized again, and in late March of 1998, she was released from the mental health center, and she moved in with her sister, Deborah. Deborah lived in Odessa as well, quite near Diane's house, but they both felt that it would be best if Diane moved in with her for a while, so that Deborah could keep a close eye on her. Diane had a history of relapsing, and her family thought that she had been released a little too early. So that brings us to April 10th, 1998. Deborah, Diane's sister, left the house briefly, and when she got back home, Diane was not there. And this was concerning, but not unusual for Diane, so initially her family didn't panic. They figured they would hear from Diane soon enough, and this is what we know, according to witness statements, happened on that day. It was around 11 a.m. when Diane left from her sister Deborah's home. At some point, she went to a bar called the Hayloft Tavern, where the bartender remembers serving her alcohol, until she began acting quite strangely and pacing in circles. Now, this isn't really a surprise to me because she had been heavily medicated, and it just doesn't mix well with alcohol. The bartender described Diane as wearing shorts, a white tank top, and coral red nail polish. When he decided to cut her off from the alcohol, Diane left. She went to another restaurant where she was again served more drinks. The next day, on April 11th, Diane's family decided it was time to take action, and they reported her missing. In the late afternoon of that same day, around 4 p.m., a passing motorist claims to have seen Diane walking alone on U.S. Highway 19. At this point, she still had not reached out to her family. They still had no idea where she was or where she was heading. But they would later find out that between April 11th and April 14th, Diane was seen at the Coral Sands Motel, which doesn't exist anymore. It has been torn down. This is unfortunate because, as it would turn out, this hotel would be one of the last locations she was ever seen. There are very few details actually released about the sighting at this hotel or sightings at this motel. I don't know if it was just crappy police work or that they just haven't released it, but I kind of feel like a lot of these cases are not treated well by the police. They hear mental health disorder and they think, we can't do anything, and that makes me really, really angry. So here we have this bipolar woman. She has a criminal history, kind of petty theft, a drug and alcohol addiction. She's been in and out of institutions. She's just been recently released. And police probably just figured, course, hoped that it was Diane, as none of her family had heard from her in several days. And it was Diane. However, the message that played back was absolutely horrifying. It was Diane's voice crying out, "Help! Help! Let me out!" Then there was some shuffling noises that sounded as though someone was trying to take the phone away from her. And then you hear Diane again say, "Hey, give me that." And the call is ended. Her mother Mildred tried to call the number back right away, but no one would answer. It was at this point that Diane's family decided they had to contact the police to further push them about Diane's disappearance. Clearly, she's in some sort of trouble. The police came, and they take the report from her family, and they listen to the voicemail, and they attempt to trace the call. Now, this is 1998, so it's pretty difficult to do. Mildred did have caller ID, though, and it said the call came from Starlight. That's it, just Starlight. Now, they thought it was a business in the area. However, there were at least 6 businesses in the greater city area that had the word Starlight in their name. However, none of them were in Odessa. But that's not to say that in several days she couldn't have made her way outside of the city of Odessa. Either way, this was a dead end. And things were about to get even more weird. On Wednesday, April 15th, 5 days now that Diane has been missing, a human finger was found along U.S. Route 19 near New York Avenue. A woman was walking to work when she spotted something that she initially thought might be like a toy or something. As she got closer, it appeared to be a human finger. She convinced herself that there was no way that that's what that was, so she just kept going. But when she got home later on that day, she told her boyfriend about it, and she just couldn't get it out of her head. Like, what if this really was someone's finger? So she convinces her boyfriend to go back and look for it. And he does. And he finds it, and it is a real finger. And the nail was painted red. He immediately calls the police to let them know what he finds. And the police recover the finger and run the prints against potential matches in their system. Now, if you remember, Diane has been arrested, so her fingerprints are in police records. Because of this, the police get a hit, and that finger was positively identified as belonging to Diane. And the coral red nail polish matches the description given by the bartender who served her on April 10th, the day she'd gone missing. This was pretty alarming news to Diane's family to go along with that terrible voicemail. Now, clearly Diane is in trouble, and the police put out a statement saying that they finally don't believe she left on her own. And even if she did go willingly, she's now off of her medication, which means she's not acting in the right frame of mind. She could be taking risks and doing things that are not safe. She's drinking and potentially using drugs. Police searched the area surrounding where the woman, well, the man, I guess, found the finger belonging to Diane. But there was no other traces of Diane being there. At this point, it is discovered that at some point between April 10th and April 18th, where we are now, Diane's house had been burglarized. Now, of course, the police were not exactly able to say when it happened, or what was taken, or if it had anything to do with Diane's disappearance. But it's kind of weird, don't you think? Clearly, she's not of her own free will, so it would be easy enough to find out where she lived. I mean, if she had her purse was also known to like to hang out with the younger crowd who liked to party. So it is kind of speculated that these people may have noticed that she hadn't been home in a while, and they decided to break in, have a party, and take whatever they wanted. So, with all of this strange and scary stuff, Diane's disappearance started to make news all over the state of Florida. Everyone was just completely puzzled as to what might have happened to her. And there's a lot of information floating around out there about this case, so I'm just going to try to give it to you as best as I can, and we'll analyze it all together as we always do. And unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff, but not a lot of clarity. A couple of weeks after Diane's finger was found, Deborah, her sister, was at work at a convenience store in Odessa called the Totally Convenience Store. The manager on shift discovered a plastic bag of neatly folded clothing hidden inside the outdoor freezer behind the store. And this manager thought this was really odd, and so she shows it to Deborah. And Deborah immediately recognizes these clothes as belonging to her sister, Diane. And she did because she had recently given these items to Diane. So, Diane's been missing for some time. Her disappearance is starting to get more coverage, right? It's really starting to get strange with the voicemail and the finger found on the side of the road. And now her clothing is found in a bag in an outdoor freezer where her sister works. Is someone messing with this family? It doesn't seem likely that Diane would have placed it there herself, and if it had been there before she went missing, don't you think someone would have noticed it? Like, how often do they get in this freezer? I found an article that said that the staff at the convenience store did not get in this freezer for approximately 3 weeks, but I don't know how true that is. Seems kind of odd. So, as I said, that really seems to be the problem in this case. Too many details, too many inconsistencies, too many things just not matching up. The police interviewed approximately 100 people. They talked to anyone who believed that they may have seen Diane or could have been connected to her disappearance. Unfortunately, the case went cold for about 2 years. In the year 2000, another strange discovery was made shortly after news of Diane's disappearance. Actually ended up in the Tampa Bay Times. Diane's brother's girlfriend, Terry Wilson, was at a Circle K in Pasco, Florida, when she spots a plastic Ziploc bag on the counter. And on it, it had the name Diane written in black Sharpie. I don't know. I don't know if she just found this weird or thought that it looks suspicious, but somehow she ends up with it. I don't know if she just took it or if she asked the clerk or whatever, and she shows it to Diane's mom, Mildred. And inside this bag was a tube of lipstick, a bottle of Taboo perfume, and a container of generic toothpaste. Supposedly the same type and brand that the mental health facility issued. Mildred believes that the items in this bag are Diane's. Okay. So tell me why the day after this newspaper article about her disappearance, Diane's brother's girlfriend is the one that supposedly finds these items at some random Circle K. I mean, it sounds really, really weird to me. If I was at the gas station where my sister worked and I saw a Ziploc bag with somebody's name on it, especially potentially the name Diane, I wouldn't necessarily correlate it to someone I knew. I don't don't know, I just think it's really weird, and I didn't find any, like, information about, did the police talk to her? Did the police talk to the store clerk? Like, why did she take this Ziploc bag? The only thing that I could find was that apparently this Circle K was in an area Diane used to frequent. 3 months before she disappeared, she had been picked up by the police in the neighborhood because she was wandering around in a manic state. So maybe, just maybe, it was just a complete coincidence. I don't know, I find it really strange. The only known suspect in this case is a man named Gary Robert Evers. Now, Gary was the manager at the Coral Sands Motel, which is the motel that Diane was believed to have been staying at before she completely disappeared off the grid. This man does have a criminal history, and apparently, according to the police, his story was just not adding up. He has never been charged, and the police have never revealed why he is a suspect in this case. On June 27th, 2001, 3 years after Diane went missing, there was an armed robbery at the motel. Gunmen wore masks, and they beat Gary's girlfriend at the time during the robbery. Gary interrupted them with his own gun, and the robber fled. Now, Gary believed he knew one of these gunmen, and he said that he was a 26-year-old man by the name of Todd Cammers. So Gary decides that he is the police, and he invites Todd over to interrogate him the next day. Gary ties this man up and sticks a gun in his face. Todd denies ever having been involved, but Gary just doesn't believe him, and they beat up his girlfriend, so Gary shoots him in the face and in the upper body. There was a witness who called the police, and Gary was then charged with murder. Turns out, side note, the man that he killed, Todd Cammer, was actually telling the truth. He was innocent, and later on, 2 other men would be convicted of that robbery. In 2004, Gary Robert Evers was convicted of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. He died in that same prison 8 years later, and he's literally, as I mentioned, the only person who's ever come close to being a suspect in the disappearance of Diane Augat. I don't know if I'm saying it right, and I'm so sorry. Every interview I listened to said it differently, and I hate that. So, that's where we are, guys. That's all the evidence I have for you in this case. It is still a cold case, and I really think that the police really need to start releasing more information on this case. I mean, I have to wonder, did she leave of her own accord? Was she in a manic state and she got lost and someone took advantage of her? Like, just because they found her finger doesn't mean that she is deceased. Now, granted, it's been since 1998, and I feel like if she was alive, we hopefully would have potentially found her by now. This case makes me incredibly sad. As a person who has depression and anxiety, I don't have bipolar disorder, but I know people with bipolar disorder, and I have seen these manic states. Excuse my tummy, it is early. And I know that these people can be in such a manic state that they are not themselves at all, and it is incredibly sad that we cannot find a medicine or a treatment for these issues that people are willing to take, because it makes them feel so strange. y'all know, my mom has dementia, and that has given me quite a bit of anxiety, and they did give me some medicine for it, and I cannot take it because it literally, it gave me anxiety about my anxiety, because I was like, why don't I feel better? Why do I still feel anxious? They said this would help me sleep. This doesn't help me sleep. So I was like, okay, this is not helping. So I do understand that aspect of not wanting to take this stuff that makes you feel so strange. And I don't understand why, like, the pharmaceutical companies can't come up with something that doesn't give people these intense side effects. Aside from that, I really have to believe that she wandered away of her own accord, and then something befell upon her and someone hurt her. It absolutely blows my mind that we have so many missing people in this country, and that so many people go missing so often, not just in this country, everywhere. But I just think it's absolutely crazy that these people have not been found in some shape or form or something. And I feel like there are a lot of cases where it couldn't be just one person that is involved in stuff like this. And how has no one said anything? A lot of times I just finish up these cases and I'm like, okay, someone knows something. Someone knows something. And I do encourage people, if you are one of these people that you think you know something, or you heard something, or someone told you something, you can anonymously report this to the police. It is completely possible to do that, and you never know. I mean, I am sure that Diane's family would love some closure in this case, as much as I'm sure that they would not want to find her deceased. They would still want to know where she is. Anyway, thank you guys so much for being here this evening. I am sorry I didn't release